Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I'm Michella Chester for NCAA.com. Today, I'm joined by Michelle Durban, the NCAA committee chair for D1 volleyball. Michelle, it's been a crazy volleyball season so far. The D1's volleyball committee revealed their top 10 listing today. How did these deliberations go, and what were some of the biggest choices that needed to be made?
Well, definitely parity in volleyball, which is great to see. But we had a lot of discussions over 5 hours trying just to get to our top 10 this week. So I would say, Texas and Baylor and Wisconsin, those top three really, kind of separated a little bit. And then there was some middle discussion. And then, of course, when you get to the last two to three, then there's a lot of teams that are very similar, and we really had to focus on that.
What did you guys value the most in choosing these teams?
Well, the NCAA gives us specific things that we have to look at. So, of course, we're looking at RPI, we're looking at strength of schedule, conference and non-conference. We look at last 10, and then, of course, head-to-head comes into play, and then the eye test because we are watching so much volleyball.
And what would you say is the biggest difference between your committee rankings and, say, the ABCA poll? It looks pretty different in a lot of aspects, and sometimes some teams that you guys included aren't included in the ABCA ranking. So what is the difference there?
Well, I think because the RPI is an algorithm and that's the first thing that we're looking at. I think the coaches, they're going to be looking at something totally different as a former coach. So definitely there's going to always be some variances, but based on what the NCAA gives us, we really have to stick to our selection criteria.
And teams like Washington and Florida made the committee's top 10. They aren't in the ABCA rankings. Explain the Washington decision. They have 5 losses, 2 in the recent weeks, but do you value their big wins more, say their win over Stanford this season?
Yes, definitely Washington, with the fact that they beat Stanford and then they've also beat Wisconsin twice. Yes, it was early, but Wisconsin's still number three. So definitely give them that. And then they have 5 top 25 wins. So when we're looking at that, yes, we understand that they have two out of the last three losses, but it's also something that when you're looking at who they're playing, it's a very tough schedule.
And moving on to the Florida decision, they're included at number 9 in your rankings. They don't have any bad losses this season. They do have losses to Minnesota and Stanford, but they also don't have top 10 wins. So, what factored most into that decision?
Well, same thing. They had top 25 win. And when you're looking at, body of work, when you start getting to that 8, 9, 10, there are a lot of teams that fit right in there. And just when we started looking head to head, Florida versus that Florida kept winning those individual matchups when we were talking about them on the committee call.
Let's talk about Stanford. They came in at number 4 for you guys. How do you consider a team like this that is historically so successful, but right now they're playing without Catherine Plummer, who's one of the best players in the country, and they were also swept by an unranked team last week. How do you weigh in all of that and the fact that if Plummer were to come back, they're looking like a different team in the blink of an eye?
Yes, and there's injuries for a lot of teams across the country. Minnesota is also dealing with their starting setter being out. So that was a discussion, but based on the gauntlet that they did in their non-conference schedule, that we felt like they had earned that top four ranking. And, if Catherine Plummer returns, then it could just make them that much stronger.
For the top 3 spots, explain those 3 choices. Baylor and Wisconsin at 2 and 3, and then was Texas an argument or were they a consensus for the number 1 seeding?
Well, I'll start with Texas. They were a consensus based on their head-to-head over Baylor. That's really, they're 1-2 right there in RPI. But the fact that Texas beat Baylor recently and did it handily in three, that we felt like that was really gave them the nod. And then, of course, when we're talking about head-to-head, Baylor beat Wisconsin, and yes, Wisconsin's playing very well right now, but Baylor has just the one loss to the number one team. So that's where we came up with that 1, 2, 3.
And Wisconsin specifically, let's talk about them a little bit. Would you say the committee focuses on the entire season or how these teams are playing now? Wisconsin's a great example of that because they did struggle early and then turned it around as of late and are looking like a championship caliber team now.
Definitely have to look at the full body of work. Their strength of schedule was very strong in their non-conference, but I think the fact that they're currently 11-0 in the Big Ten, that says something. And so that was definitely a discussion that they're leading the Big Ten.
Okay, so moving forward into the next month, what will the committee be looking at the most as you guys are going to consider the top 16 for those regional postings for the tournament?
I will definitely continue watching a lot of volleyball, which we have already been doing, but you know, you can look at everybody's schedule. Some teams have already kind of gone through their gauntlet, and now it's just can they win out? And then we have some other teams that maybe haven't gotten to the meat of their conference schedule and have some big matches upcoming. So we'll definitely be looking at those and kind of see where it kind of shakes out. But also we'll be looking at if there are any injuries or any players that are returning over the next month. That will definitely come in play when we're sitting in the committee room.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle. Good luck with these future deliberations.
Thank you so much for having us.